Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're exploring Shakti Gawain's book, Living in the Light. This book seems to be all about unlocking potential in pretty much every area of life. Relationships, work, even money.
Yeah. This book has been so influential for decades in the personal growth field.
What makes it so unique? What sets it apart?
Well, for one, it blends spirituality and self-help and practical advice.
Okay, so it's not just about, feeling good and having positive vibes.
No, not at all. It's very much about action and creating real change. And one of the things that stood out to me reading these excerpts that you shared was this idea of connecting with your inner universe.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I was hoping you could tell me what exactly she means by that.
Yeah, so imagine this. There's this wellspring of creativity and wisdom within each of us, like untapped potential just waiting to be accessed.
Okay, I'm picturing like a tiny galaxy inside each of us.
Exactly. And it's not just some vague mystical concept either. She offers concrete ways to tap into that inner power and really, transform your life.
And she seems to have really walked the walk herself. Like, how did she discover this inner universe?
Yeah, she's very open about her own journey in the book. She talks about how, for years she felt lost and disillusioned. She was searching for fulfillment in all the wrong places.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Absolutely. And so she had this profound realization, almost like an aha moment, where she realized that the answers she was seeking weren't out there in the world, but within herself.
So how do we do that? How do we tap into this inner power? Is it meditation?
Well, meditation can certainly help, but Gawain really emphasizes the importance of intuition. She sees intuition as this, almost like an inner compass.
Oh, like a gut feeling.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But isn't that a bit, I don't know, unreliable? We're always told to think logically and not just go with our gut.
Yeah, and she addresses that. That's a very common misconception. She believes that intuition is way more than just a fleeting hunch. It's more like a sense of knowing, something deeper than logic can explain.
She even shares a story about her editor, Becky, who was feeling unfulfilled in her career. She had this intuition she was meant to be doing something different. What happened? Did it pay off?
Oh, it did, big time. Becky ended up starting her own business and became incredibly successful.
Wow. So it's not just about following any whim, it's about tapping into something deeper. But a lot of people, myself included, I think, are afraid to trust their intuition. Like, what if you make the wrong choice?
Right, and she acknowledges that fear is completely understandable. We're often, conditioned to value logic and reason over feelings.
Right.
But, she suggests starting small. Pay attention to your gut feelings. Notice how your body reacts. And the more you do that, the more you start to recognize the voice of your intuition.
So then, moving on, this idea of inner knowing. She also talks about masculine and feminine energies. I was wondering, how does that fit into the whole picture of living in the light?
Oh, that's a crucial part of her philosophy. She believes that everyone, regardless of gender, has both masculine and feminine energies within them.
So it's not about gender roles.
Not at all. It's about recognizing and balancing these two fundamental energies. So the masculine is about action, doing, creating, going out into the world. And the feminine is about receiving, nurturing, being intuitive, flowing with life.
So we need both to thrive.
Exactly. Like imagine the stereotypical macho man. All action, no receptivity, or the damsel in distress, all feeling, no action.
Right.
Like those are extremes.
I see how that could create problems not just in our personal lives, but in the wider world as well.
Absolutely.
So how do we actually, cultivate more balance between those energies?
Well, she suggests becoming aware of your own tendencies. Do you tend to lean more towards, doing an action or towards being and receiving? Once you're aware of that, then you can start to consciously cultivate the opposite energy. So meditation and visualization can help. But even just, spending time in nature to connect with your feminine side, or setting goals and taking action to tap into your masculine energy.
I can already see how that would be helpful. But is it really possible to achieve, perfect balance? I mean, life is messy.
You're absolutely right. It's not about perfection. It's more about recognizing when you're out of balance and, taking steps to restore harmony. It's a constant, process.
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah. And, that leads us to another one of her big ideas, this concept of relationships as mirrors.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. What does she mean by that?
So she suggests that all of our relationships, romantic, friendships, work connections, they all reflect our relationship with ourselves.
Okay, so the way we treat ourselves gets mirrored back to us and how others treat us.
Exactly. And she believes that many of us are trying to find fulfillment outside ourselves, through relationships, achievements, possessions, when really The true source of fulfillment lies within.
Right, so it goes back to that inner universe idea.
Exactly.
But how does that actually play out in relationships?
Well, she has a great story about a couple who were business partners. They were super successful but felt trapped and resentful. And it turned out they were both afraid to express their true needs and desires.
Oh, so they were projecting their own insecurities onto each other.
Exactly. But when they finally started communicating honestly and setting boundaries, something amazing happened. They were able to create more independence within the relationship, which actually strengthened their bond.
Huh. That's interesting. It kind of challenges that conventional advice you need to be completely dependent on each other to have a strong relationship.
It does. And that's what I appreciate about Gawain's approach. She always encourages us to question assumptions and look deeper. She even says sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to create space for individual growth.
Yeah. Now, I got to ask about work and money. What does she have to say about that? Because that's an area where so many people struggle.
Yeah, and her perspective is pretty radical. She sees work as an extension of our inner universe, a way to channel our creativity and gifts into the world. Work should feel like play, she says.
Hold on, that sounds a bit idealistic. Most people I know see work as, a necessary evil, something they have to do to pay the bills, not a source of joy.
You're right, that is the prevailing mindset.
Yeah.
But Gawain challenges us to consider a different possibility. Like, what if we're feeling stuck because we're not aligned with our true calling, with our channel?
A channel. So how do we find that alignment? Is it just following our passions?
Well, passion is definitely part of it. But she also emphasizes the importance of intuition here as well. She tells this amazing story about a woman who always envisioned herself, like handling large sums of money, even though she came from very humble beginnings.
So she had this vision of abundance, but her reality didn't match up.
Exactly. But she held on to that vision. She trusted her intuition, and eventually, after all these twists and turns, she became a successful stockbroker.
Wow. It's like she manifested her dream career.
It is.
But what about when intuition leads us astray? Like, what if you take a risk and it doesn't pay off? And Gawain actually talks about experiencing a pretty big financial loss herself, right?
Yeah, she does. She shares a very personal story about buying property in Hawaii. And she felt so strongly that this was the right move, so she followed her intuition.
Okay.
But things didn't go as planned, and she ended up losing a significant amount of money.
Wow. That's not exactly what you'd expect from a personal growth guru. How did she handle that setback?
What's remarkable is she didn't see it as a failure. She talks about this moment of panic, feeling like she'd made a huge mistake. But then she surrendered to the experience, trusting that something bigger was at play. And you know what? The property ended up going to these people who desperately needed a fresh start, and they created this thriving community there.
So even though she lost money, she found a deeper meaning in the experience.
Yeah.
So it's like she's saying we have to let go of our attachment to specific outcomes.
Yeah, and trust the bigger picture.
All right. Let's talk about money, because let's be real, we all need it to survive.
Absolutely.
But Gawain seems to have a different perspective on it than most.
She does. She challenges that conventional idea that money is the key to happiness or security. She believes that true abundance comes from connecting with that inner power, that inner universe that we've been talking about.
So it's not about chasing money. It's about aligning with something bigger. But how does that actually translate to, having enough money to pay the bills, to live comfortably?
Right. That's the question. And, her answer might surprise you. She says that when we're in that state of alignment, when we're trusting our intuition, living authentically, money tends to flow more naturally. It becomes a reflection of that energy moving through our channel.
Okay, so if you're feeling blocked in your life, that's going to show up in your finances too.
It's definitely possible. And she really emphasizes releasing old patterns, of scarcity and fear around money.
So if I'm constantly worrying about money, that worry is actually creating more scarcity.
Yeah. And that's a tough one, I know. But she provides tools for, shifting those patterns. She talks about the power of gratitude, focusing on what we do have, and being generous.
Wait, giving away money when you don't feel like you have much.
Right. That sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But she says giving opens up the flow of abundance. Trusting that the more you give, the more you receive.
It's a lot deeper than I realized.
It is. And one thing that really struck me was her emphasis on balance between giving and receiving.
Explain that, because I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially when it comes to money.
Yeah. It's easy to get caught in that go-getter mentality, always striving, always pushing. But she reminds us we also need to be able to receive abundance, love, support, even money.
So it's not just about working hard, it's about letting good things flow in.
Exactly. And it goes back to that balance of masculine and feminine energies. The masculine is going after what you want. The feminine is being open to receiving.
I see how everything weaves together in her approach to life.
It's really brilliant how she connects everything.
And speaking of aligning with yourself, she also has some really interesting things to say about health and well-being.
Oh, absolutely. Like she sees our physical bodies as a reflection of how alive we are, how open our channel is. It's not just about eating right and exercising.
Yeah.
You know, it's about looking at those deeper emotional and spiritual blocks that might be impacting our physical health.
Oh, so like all those aches and pains and illnesses, they're not just random, are they?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, she suggests that they could be signs that we're out of alignment with our true selves. Maybe we're ignoring our intuition or suppressing our emotions.
Yeah, for sure. I know I've pushed myself way too hard and ignored what my body's telling me, only to end up completely burnt out.
Yeah, and she talks about paying attention to those early warning signs. She shares a story about a client who lost a significant amount of weight just by expressing her emotions and setting healthier boundaries.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. It's like healing those emotional wounds can actually impact our physical health.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, isn't it? Mind, body, and spirit. And it makes you think, you know, if we have the power to heal ourselves, what about the world around us? You know, what does Gawain say about creating positive change on a larger scale?
That's a good question because it feels like the world's problems are so big, so overwhelming.
Yeah.
How can one person make a difference?
I hear that. But she tells this fascinating story about the 100th monkey phenomenon. Have you ever heard of that?
It rings a bell, but remind me.
Okay, so it's a story that illustrates how a new behavior, once it's adopted by enough monkeys in a group, spontaneously spreads to the entire population.
Right.
Now, there's debate about the accuracy of the story, but the idea is powerful. Like small changes can have a ripple effect.
Okay, so each of us doing our own inner work can actually contribute to a collective shift.
Exactly. It's like we're all interconnected, and our individual choices have a bigger impact than we realize. She even talks about how the media could actually promote self-awareness and personal growth.
Wait, the media could be a force for good.
Yeah. Imagine if our entertainment actually inspired us to be better versions of ourselves, to be more compassionate.
What if instead of reality TV, we had reality growth TV?
Exactly. That's the kind of shift she's talking about. It starts with each of us, but it extends outward. It influences our relationships, our communities, and ultimately the world.
That's pretty inspiring. It reminds me of what she says about us all being geniuses in our own unique way.
Yes, embrace your individuality. You know, it's not about fitting into some mold. It's about discovering and expressing those unique gifts. What makes you come alive?
This conversation has been so rich. You know, we've only scratched the surface. But hopefully this deep dive has sparked something for you, listener. And if you're intrigued, we encourage you to check out Living in the Light for yourself.
Absolutely. This is just a starting point. The real journey begins when you start applying these ideas to your own life.
Yeah.
You know, see what resonates and make it your own.
And that brings us to the big question. What is your unique genius waiting to be expressed? What steps can you take today, even small ones, to start living more in the light?
Ooh, good questions. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. The world needs your light. It needs your unique gifts, so don't be afraid to shine.
Beautifully said. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're all in this together, creating a brighter future, one step at a time. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep shining bright.
It really is a powerful way to think about it, you know, and it's not just about, you know, the food we eat and exercise and all that. It's like looking at those deeper emotional and spiritual blocks that might be impacting our physical health.
So you're saying if I'm stressed or feeling disconnected, that's going to show up in my body somehow?
It might. You know, those aches, pains, illnesses, maybe they're signs we're out of alignment with our true selves. You know, maybe we're ignoring our intuition or suppressing our feelings. I'm sure we've all been there at some point.
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely pushed myself too hard and ignored my body's signals. And you always end up paying for it in the end.
That's so common. And, you know, Gawain really encourages us to pay attention to those early warning signs. She shares a story about a client who lost a lot of weight just by expressing her emotions and setting healthier boundaries.
Wow. So, you know, healing emotional wounds can actually impact our physical health.
It's all connected, right?
Yeah.
Mind, body, spirit.
Yeah.
And, you know, it makes you wonder, If we have the power to heal ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
what about the world around us?
Yeah.
How do we create positive change on a larger scale?
That's a great question because sometimes it feels like the world's problems are so big. How can one person actually make a difference?
I know that feeling. But, she shares this really fascinating story about the 100th monkey phenomenon. You ever heard that?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
So it's a story about how a new behavior, like once it's adopted by enough monkeys in a group, it spontaneously spreads to the entire population.
Okay.
There's debate about the accuracy of it,
Yeah.
but the underlying idea is really powerful. Like small changes can have a ripple effect.
So it's like each of us doing our own inner work that can actually contribute to like a collective shift.
Exactly. And she even talks about how, the media could actually promote self-awareness and personal growth.
Hold on, you're saying the media could be a force for good?
What if our entertainment actually inspired us to be better versions of ourselves?
Yeah.
To be more compassionate and understanding?
I love that idea. Like, what if instead of reality TV, we had reality growth TV?
Right. That's the kind of shift she's talking about. It starts with each of us, but then it extends outward. It influences our relationships, our communities, the world.
That's really inspiring. And it makes me think about what she says about us all being geniuses in our own unique way.
Exactly. Embrace your individuality.
Yeah.
It's not about fitting into some mold of success or happiness. It's about, discovering and expressing your unique gifts. What makes you come alive?
Well, this conversation has been incredibly enriching. And I feel like we've only just begun to explore all the wisdom that Goyen offers in Living in the Light.
Yeah, there's so much more to discover in the book.
Yeah.
And we really encourage you to check it out for yourself.
Yeah. If anything we've talked about today resonated with you, definitely dive into the book.
Mm-hmm.
And as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with this question. What is your unique genius waiting to be expressed?
What steps can you take, even small ones, to start living more in the light?
Think about that. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're all in this together, creating a brighter future one step at a time. So until next time, keep diving deep and keep shining bright.